Leon Panetta 2025 Lecture Series. What will be the legacy of the Trump era? This lecture discusses bipartisanship, gridlock, checks and balances, stability or chaos. What will be the governing legacy of the Trump era? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Secretary Leon Panetta.
Thank you very much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, I'm stepping in for Sylvia, which is not easy to do. But she's recovering from a recent medical treatment, doing very well. But I know that she wishes she could be here with all of you, and wishes all of you well in this final event of the 32nd season of the Leon Panetta Lecture Series. We are, as always, here at the beautiful Monterey Conference Center in my hometown of Monterey. All season, the theme for our lecture series has been to examine the current Trump presidency. And we've discussed its impact on our nation and on our democracy. We are now almost 6 months into the second Trump administration, and in some ways, it seems like a lifetime. It's a time that has been filled with numerous executive orders, court cases, an on and off trade war, the beginning and now possible end of Elon Musk and Doge, firings, rehirings, targeting of Harvard and other universities, research funds, law firms, and as we speak, an activation of the National Guard here in California without consultation with either the governor or the mayor. And I guess he's also threatening to send in the Marines as well. In short, it has been a very chaotic period. In my over 50 years of public service, I've seen Washington at its best, and I've seen Washington at its worst. I have seen Washington work, Republicans and Democrats willing to work together with the President of the United States on bipartisan legislation and solutions to the issues we face. But I've also seen it at its worst, deeply partisan, deeply divided, and dysfunctional. And that's what it is today. The result is a failure to govern in our democracy, little cooperation, and a lot of congressional gridlock. President Trump has signed just 6 pieces of legislation since taking office. This is despite Republicans having control of both the House and the Senate. With the narrowest of majorities, Republicans are struggling to stay united and loyal to the president, even when his big, beautiful bill that cuts taxes will also threaten popular programs like Medicare and Medicaid and dramatically increase the size of the debt, which is now, by the way, a record $36 trillion. Democrats are struggling as well, trying to deal with the result of an election defeat with questions about what went wrong. Was there a cover-up of President Biden's aging problem? And where does the party go from here? At the same time, it is looking toward the midterms to reinvigorate a frustrated base, even as they try to respond to Trump's barrage of comments and actions that explode every day. Tonight, we will discuss what's happening and try to define it in terms of what it means for the governing of our democracy. The title is Bipartisanship, Gridlock, Checks and Balances, Stability or Chaos. What will the governing legacy of the Trump era be? Joining me tonight are three of the most experienced political and campaign consultants that are working today. Our first guest is one of America's best-known political consultants. His long list of electoral successes makes very clear that he has a knack for steering overlooked campaigns to unexpected landslide victories, and for remaking political underdogs into upset winners. He gained national attention for his work as the lead strategist of the successful presidential campaign of the then Arkansas governor, a guy named Bill Clinton. I worked with James in the Clinton administration and was always impressed by his Louisiana common sense and his straight talk. In recent years, he's focused on campaigns in more than 23 countries around the globe, stretching from the continents of South America to Europe, to Africa, and most recently to Asia. He's also a best-selling author, actor, producer, talk show host, speaker, and restaurateur. He now co-hosts the weekly Politicon podcast, Politics War Room, with journalist Al Hunt. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming James Carville. Take a seat. Our second guest was inaugurated as the 55th governor of the state of New Jersey in January 19, 2010. He was reelected with 60% of the vote in November of 2013 and served 2 terms. He was a Republican candidate for president in both 2016 and 2024. Prior to his service as governor, he served as the United States Attorney for the District of New Jersey from January 2002 to December of 2008. I worked closely with Chris when I was Secretary of Defense in the immense recovery effort from Hurricane Sandy that literally took apart his state. In 2014, he was elected chairman of the Republican Governors Association. In 2019, he authored the New York Times bestseller, Let Me Finish, about his life and his candidacy for president. He authored Republican Rescue in 2021, dealing with his prescription for the future of the national GOP. And in February 2024, he released his third book, What Would Reagan Do?, about the leadership of President Reagan. Please join me in welcoming Governor Christie. Our final guest has decades of experience holding senior positions in public policy, politics, publishing, and the media, drawing on unique experiences as a trusted advisor to America's most powerful leaders. She has a reputation as one of the country's foremost and seasoned voices across a diverse spectrum of policymaking, political, and multimedia platforms. Her career spans 40-plus years in senior Republican positions as advisor, counselor, chief of staff, campaign manager. She served as deputy campaign manager on President George H.W. Bush's '92 re-election bid and was later assistant to President George W. Bush and counselor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Working with federal, state, and local leaders of both parties, she was engaged in transformational policy and reform initiatives in energy, economics, and security issues. Please welcome Mary Matalin. I'm lucky to have been friends, lucky to be friends of all three of our speakers for quite a few years. The good thing is that they all recognize that democratic values should not be a partisan issue. I look forward to getting their perspective at this vital time for our country. So, on with the show. Let me begin by focusing on the headlines of the day. I just think it's tough not to pay a little bit of attention to what the hell's going on right now. First and foremost has been a long-running conflict here between President Trump and Elon Musk. That relationship, you got two big egos. They've tried to work together, and they're now fighting like cats and dogs. Was this inevitable? Was it based just on differences on the big, beautiful bill? Was it based on Musk not getting the head of the NASA that he wanted? Or is there something more behind this breakup? It obviously is looking pretty ugly. Chris, you've got some familiarity with this guy.
Yeah, and with getting screwed by Trump, too. No, look, I think it was inevitable. If you look at every relationship that he's had over the course of his political career, at a minimum, whether it's Rex Tillerson or Mike Pompeo, whether it's Jim Mattis or General McMaster, Reince Priebus or General Kelly. Donald Trump is the great pursuer. If he wants to be your friend, he will pursue you like no one has ever pursued you in your life. He will charm you, cajole you, flatter you, and include you in his most personal orbit. But the minute he gets you, the clock starts running. And you're going to wind up out the door. And when you're out the door, you'll be insulted on the way out as well. And so you saw Rex Tillerson called him, when he came in, the greatest CEO in American history. On the way out, he said he was lazy as a dog and dumb as a rock. Jim Mattis on the way in, the greatest American general since Patton. On the way out, stupid. And General Kelly, who he called the next Jim Baker, when he left, he said that he was disloyal and unreliable. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. And I said back last fall, it was the same thing what happened to Musk. And it was, oh, no, he's the richest guy in the world. He gave $275 million to Trump in the campaign. He won't ever do that to Elon Musk. Of course he will. And did. And I think Musk thought that he was going to be able to avoid the fate of all those other people and more that I didn't mention. You can't. I'll end by saying I told General Kelly when he was made chief of staff, he called and said, you know Trump as well as anybody. Will you come down and have lunch with me to teach me about the personal Trump, how to deal with him that way? And I said, I'd be honored to have lunch with you, but I can give you the briefing in 45 seconds. And he said, well, I'm a general, I love efficiency. And I said, all right, today you are trading at 100 cents on the dollar. You will trade to zero. The only question is, how long will it take? And same thing has now happened to the richest man in the world. The big difference here is, if Musk decides he wants to fight back, He can fight back more effectively than anyone Trump's ever done this to. And I think that's why you're seeing Trump now back off and say, oh, I wish him all the best. Because he knows that Elon Musk could open $1 billion pack tomorrow and not miss the money. And that's going to cause potential problems for the president.
Mary, what do you think? I know we're all looking at it from the outside, but what do you think of this relationship?
First of all, thank you for having us. Thank you for being here. I've been trying to avoid politics for 5 years, and look at, people are still interested in it. Well, Musk and Trump, I have a 2-year-old grandson, which I spend a lot of time. Of course, I've been married to James for 32 years, so I'm kind of, I'm not being glib about this. We were talking back there, so I missed the introduction, but I had the great, good blessing and privilege of working in the golden era of politics. I was friends with, we all, you had drinks with Foley, George Bush's, H.W. Bush's, one time he said to me, he goes, ask Dan about that. And I said, Dan Quayle? He goes, no, Dan Rostenkowski. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the era it's from. So I'm going to stipulate this. I'm going to answer the question. Not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Libertarian, I'm not an independent. I've been all those things. I have never changed my philosophy or my principles or my policy preferences. So that says something about the party system, which we're going to get into. But one of the glories and blessings of being active in that era, when a lot of women weren't in there, you did not behave like that in the Oval Office, period. You didn't stand behind the desk. You didn't bring your kids. You wore a jacket. There are some things that the visuals, I know we're in a different era and all that, but as a grandmother and a wife of a perpetually arrested development person, and I love him for that, boys like flare up and then they make up, okay? So this one, you all know, there's been so many other fights behind the scenes. His son did not hit him in the face. He was on the left side. His kid is right-handed. There's all kinds of behind-the-scenes fights. I chalk that up to boys, but it's ugly and it's contributory to this ongoing inability for us to reach across the aisle, even when we agree on there's so many 80% issues, right? We agree on so many things, but the way in which we've come to engage in politics today, largely driven by the acceleration of social media and platforms and all that, is manifest in the way, and you add those personalities on top of it, you're gonna get this, what I hope is a one-off. I do not wanna see that kind of business in the future. Now, as to who's going to win this thing, I think leadership, which is what's missing now, I'm going to quote somebody we all love here. Leadership is about service, not power, okay? So I think I think he provided a lot of great service on SpaceX. That was amazing. I'm very mad at this fight because I had to dump all my Tesla stock I bought on the dip. And it's like these things have real life consequences, but they are, if Musk were to seek his retribution or vengeance on the Trump machine after what he went through with his cars being burnt up and being against the other machine, okay, these two machines, where is he going to go? Who is he going to support? Y'all don't even have a candidate. You didn't have one in the last, ran a dead guy. Who is he, you can shift, but shift to what? If he really wants to stay engaged and have an impact, because I do think, and you won't disagree with this, you won't disagree with this, the inefficiencies and the degradation of the systems internal to government. We thought we changed it after 9/11. We integrated no, we did not have the technology. That brain power that he brought in is critical. That it's infused with all this personality stuff is why I can't be in any party anymore. I just had to be in the common sense zone, which is, can we just continue with this work? If you're gonna have fights and be like that, do it off camera, but it is part of the art of the deal. And I think that most people out there find it not the way they communicate in their regular lives. I think it's sort of a show. Like politics used to be showbiz for ugly people. Now, like
Still is.
yeah, I think there's just an element of showbiz, and I'm a policy person, so I thought I like this as showbiz, but I think both of them understand that this would be a nuclear holocaust. I'm loath to use that term, but those two powers coming together would not be good for the country. And I pray at some level, both of these men or men around them or women around them understand that they both have, Musk has something to contribute, he has contributed, and please stop being a 2-year-old, go change your diaper and take your time out.
James, how would you like to get a hold of Musk's billions of dollars for the Democratic side?
It would be nice. First of all, thank you, Bill. This is the 32nd time you've done this. I think this is my 4th time, so I've been here for 1/8 of all the Panetta forums. I'm grateful. Just for a moment to tell you that sometimes you live somewhere and you don't realize how remarkable your community is. This is one of the most remarkable places I've been. The culture, the scenery, the food. And I got to thinking about a connection. Probably the best documentary in the history of rock and roll was Monterey Pop. Mm-hmm. And some people think the best political documentary was The War Room. And you know, they were 25 years apart. And you know what they had in common? The same director. So it's just kind of interesting, kind of cultural connection.
Who did Monterey?
If you will. I love coming here. So the question of, a friend of mine does focus groups, and he was in Las Vegas. And he asked a question in the war between Trump and Musk, who are you pulling for? And a crafts dealer said, the bullet. I mean, this is one of the great humans. Let's take the biggest ego in the world and the biggest pocketbook in the world and put them in a round office and see where this ends up. Exactly where every Hollywood screenwriter thought it would end up. It was never going to work from the beginning. And but it's a great distraction. It's a great thing. It's a great thing to make jokes about. It's a great to talk about. It's a great thing to speculate about. You know, Elon Musk says his 5-year-old kid has PTSD from being in the White House. Trump is telling people he's a drug addict. It's fun to watch, but I think it's also distracting from, you know, the real kind of challenges we're dealing with. But, you know, in one sense, you can't get enough of it. In another sense, you already have too much of it. And we're just going to have to wean ourselves from this sort of entertainment circus and focus on something else. But right now, we're all pulling for the bullet.
All right, let's talk about the other headline that's going on now, which is this activation of the National Guard in California without consulting the governor or the mayor, and obviously threatening now to bring the Marines in as a backup. Is this really about law and order, or is it the politics of beating up on Governor Newsom in California? Chris?
Well, look, as a governor, I very jealously guard being the commander-in-chief of the New Jersey National Guard for those 8 years. Those are the men and women from my state who volunteer and sacrifice their time and their lives on behalf of our state and the country. So it would have been a really interesting conversation if I were governor between me and President Trump about whether he was going to activate the National Guard in New Jersey without my permission. And I think that James called the Musk-Trump stuff a distraction. I really think the way Trump is dealing with this is to try to get people distracted from the Trump-Musk stuff. You know, it doesn't look good for him. It doesn't look good for the President of the United States to be in these petty little fights. So where does he go? he goes back to two extraordinarily reliable political things for him: immigration and California. So he can say I'm being tough on immigration, which a large majority of the American people say they want. And then he can say, and you know how crazy California is. That's been his position all along. So Newsom is almost like a bonus in this. Don't ever forget, when you're assessing Donald Trump's decision making, the last question he asks before, and he only asks himself, but the last question he asks himself before he makes a decision is this good for me? And he looked at this and went, yeah, I can look like I'm in charge, I can look like I'm tough, and oh, by the way, the bonus is Newsom looks weak. So that's a good thing for him too. So I think it's that simple, Leon, and I don't, in the end, is the President the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, as we all know he is. He has certain rights to do things, but he doesn't respect any of the norms that have been respected over the years, which is consult governors before you go in and take their National Guard.
Yeah. James, what are your thoughts? You know, I might say, as a former defense secretary, that the military was designed to defend this country from foreign adversaries. It was not designed to do law enforcement at the local level. So what's happening here? Is Trump trying to use the military as his personal guard in going after these issues?
So, first of all, Mr. Secretary, you're exactly right. The Marine or soldier is not trained to enforce domestic order. They're trained for something entirely different. It's literally, it's asking a policeman to do a fireman's job. Okay, they're not trained to fight fires. They're trained to keep order. It's just two different things. I'm going to amplify a little bit what Governor Christie said. So, but Trump is a master at this. So he's got his big, beautiful bill is in real trouble. So every day, I don't need to go through, Leon could do it better than any of us put together. Got to pass the House, they got to get in the Senate, they got to do reconciliation, a conference committee, they got to jam the votes are really tight. One Republican congressman just resigned today, right out of the blue, said, I just can't take it anymore. And so he's got the Musk story. And everybody's focused on the big, beautiful bill and the Musk story. Trump says, I got an idea. I'm going to send troops. And what does Los Angeles have? It has cameras, it's a media center, it's a democratic city, it has a lot of people, quote, not like us, unquote. So I'll go in there, and then now all we're talking about, we forgot about the big, beautiful bill, we forgot about the split up, we forgot about everything, in every camera, in every cable TV show. We're having a panel discussion here today, and we're talking about the authorization of the use of military force, and we have the former general counsel of the Pentagon, and to walk us through some of the decisions, and you're just all completely distracted. And you forgot about the big, beautiful deal, you forgot about 200 rural hospitals closing, you forgot about $4.2 trillion in debt that's being added, you forgot about the fact that the yield on the 10-year bond is up 40 basis points. And you focused on that. And to that extent, to him, it's working. I've changed the course of the river in one bold move. And by the way, as soon as this goes badly, as soon as it goes poorly, then it's going to be something else. He keeps giving us a distraction, and we keep getting distracted, because you cannot not have a visual of a soldier on an American street arresting people at bayonet point. How can you pass that up? If you're a TV news editor, oh God, I need this film, because it drives people crazy. And until we learn as a country that we have to focus on mundane, really important everything days, and forget about the 10-day headline, and this is going to pass, and it's going to be something else. Right? He's going to pull out of NATO. I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to deploy an aircraft carrier off of Cape Cod, and then we're going to all chase that. And we have to learn to not to take a pitch. It's hard to do, but sometimes you got to take a pitch. Sometimes you got to eat the football. You can't throw it. When you got to learn that. And it's hard. It's distracting. And people say, "Well, you're not fighting on every front. What are you doing? You're giving up." No, I'm not giving up. I'm just trying to keep focused on the thing that is most harmful to the country and most advantageous to the opposition. That's my general view.
So your basic view is that if you stand back, the guy will basically self-destruct.
Yeah, when someone's getting ready to take office, I wrote a piece in the New York Times, and I said, what we need to do is play possum. And people went crazy. And I said, we ought to do rope-a-dope. You remember Muhammad Ali? You remember that like yesterday, Governor? And, for the first 6 or 7 rounds, you just kind of bobbing and weaving. You're letting them throw punches. You can't do that. We got to fight on every front. Fight, fight, fight. Okay. We won the American Revolution because George Washington retreated from Long Island in New York City. He went across the Delaware River in Valley Forge, and then on Christmas Day, he crosses the river in Trenton, place that Governor Christie lived for 8 years, and we win the war. If you go to Gettysburg, the first thing the Federal Army did was retreat to the fishhook. All right? Sometimes you win by not fighting every fight at the point of contact. Come on in. Let them come. And what I said was, and I will give myself credit, let it collapse under its own weight. And I think we're in the middle of it collapsing under its own weight. So we've gone to Musk, we've gone to the big beautiful bill, we've gone to LA, but the whole time, people are, what's going on here? And it's going to continue to do this. They're going to continue to struggle and get votes. And if they don't get this through, what's going to happen? I don't know. If they get it through, the bond market is the great disciplinarian of all America. And, Secretary, you know that. Governor, you know that. You can fool some of the people some of the time, all of the people some of the time, but you'll never fool a bond market. It'll never be fooled. It knows right where it is.
Mary, what do you think?
What I think is that distraction has always been a critical part of politics. And what amazes me is that smart politicians and operatives continue to let Trump control their attention. James is exactly right. We don't talk about this at home. I'm very proud of you for saying that, because politics is about communications, and communications is about less is more. Saying less is more. And he's letting you guys, it's like the whole Democratic Party, whatever the Democrat or the Republican, I'm not pimping for either party, but it's like we're very ADHD in our family, and we all have t-shirts that say, hey, there goes a squirrel. We can change the subject at any minute and then follow it. Well, that's what they do. Now, if you're a normal person, I'm not claiming to be a normal person, and you're all here interested, so you're probably not normal either. But if you're just a person out there, and the other thing we mistake about politics, we who are so informed in it or sunk into it, is we lose our perspective, and we take these as daily news stories, and we react to it as such. This did not happen in a vacuum. People don't get posse comitatus and all that out there. What they've seen is Portland being taken over, and I'm from the Midwest, and Kenosha, and all this defund the police, and no law and order. The core competence, or the core reason for government is order and liberty. Like, what's the balance? So I think people are seeing this in the streets, and we've seen it all over New York. We saw a health official get shot dead on the street. I mean, we live in New Orleans, so I'm kind of passionate about this as not a political issue, and Newsom is lagniappe, as we say, and Newsom threw himself into it by trying to screech right on stuff. He's out there doing it. But at some level, this is like New Orleans, where we had a terrorist attack on New Year's Eve. Bridget's, your daughter, thank God, didn't go to her Sugar Bowl and all that. But when we live in the CBD, a block from the mayor's office or city hall. I watched from my balcony a teenage kid, 14 years old, walking down the street with an AR, jumping on cop cars, all this stuff. The first thing the reddest of red governors, Landry, did when he came in was meet with well, he didn't meet with our mayor because she's too dumb and corrupt, but he met with the police chief and the DA and everybody else, and he said, we gotta fix New Orleans. This is just practical. This is not red, white, conservative, blue, whatever the hell. And the presence of the National Guard and the state troopers and everybody for Mardi Gras and the Super Bowl and everything that we've had, it's made a difference. And we've gotten a little bit of control. I'm not saying these are the same issues, but rather than this is what irritates me about Trump, is he's just so easy to get everybody off of results and off of the policy and off of the reality, like what is going on in the street? What is going on in college campuses? What's going on in New Orleans where terrorists can get in? And, those are real issues. And that's what I say. Normal people are like, we don't really care. I mean, it's entertainment, but it's not scratching our itch, which is 80% all over our body, if that makes sense. And so, and Newsom just walks around. You said earlier back there that you remember this, and I remember this too, because of the '92 campaign, and we had riots in LA, and Bush was so snake-bit. Perot got in, and you remember all of that stuff. And what's the course of it? He called Pete Wilson, and he called Bill, but people talked to each other in those days. So I think each of these are real problems, and we're having a real conversation, and the essence of it is if we can't even talk to each other, and maybe that's Trump's fault, or maybe, it doesn't matter whose fault it is, somebody has to be the person that is addressing the people who are the ones who are suffering from the lack of stability or balance in liberty and order.
Let me ask you, all three of you, because I really want you to address how does Trump govern as president of the United States? Rahm Emanuel, who we know, most of us know from our past experience, has said that the Trump governing is defined by 3 C's: cruelty, chaos, and corruption. His supporters say that that's how Trump makes change. But is he really making effective changes, or is he just raising hell? How does this guy govern? We know, we've worked for presidents who basically brought advisors into the room, developed plans, developed approaches, looked at the consequences, made a careful decision, and then followed through. He doesn't go through that kind of process. So how does he govern? Does he have a vision, or is he just producing chaos?
Look, I think, and Rob and I worked together for 4 years on ABC every Sunday, sitting across from each other. So I've gotten to know him well, and I have enormous respect for him. But that's what elects Trump. Those kind of comments are what elects Trump.
True that.
And I don't understand how anybody who opposes Trump can't understand that that's what he's waiting for. Insult him, say he's corrupt, chaotic, cruel, all like really fun words. But the way I think you have to look at how does he govern, especially in his second term, what are the results?
Yep.
He said he was going to end the war between Russia and Ukraine in 24 hours. Now he says he was kidding. Well, I don't know. I was listening to him, and it sounded like he was joking around for me. Second, he said he was going to get all of the hostages home from Gaza or else. Well, they're still not all home, and there's been no or else. He said that he was going to bring prices down immediately. I don't know. Some prices have gone down, some have gone up, but you certainly can't put a big check mark next to that. The only thing you can put a check mark next to from his big promises in the campaign is immigration. The border has been secured. And you could agree or disagree with how it was done, but he has done it. So you give him a check mark there. But that's hitting 250. Hitting 250 is getting you Hall of Fame. It certainly doesn't get you into the White House. And so I think the problem for anyone opposing Trump now is you can't play his game. He will win the chaos game. He will win the cruelty game. And he will clearly win the corruption game. But so what? Don't play there. If you play on your opponent's strengths, you have a greater likelihood of losing. And with Trump, I would say it's almost a certainty of losing. So the way I look at this is that his governing style is that there is no style. He does what James was talking about before when he feels like he's in trouble. You know, the squirrel runs over there, and the media, who are also part of the problem, they dutifully chase it every time. And I could tell you, having been friends with Trump for 19 of the last 23 years, he is laughing his ass off. He does it on purpose. And when they chase it, he's like, see, this is easy. So hold him to his word on governing, especially in his second term. Hold him to his word. He's failing. In 4 months, he's failing miserably. And I think it's part of what James was implying before, that things sink of their own weight. So I think when Rahm engages in that way, it is a sure loser. I talked to a number of Democratic candidates, and I'll end with this, during the presidential campaign. And I said, talking about Trump is your comfort food. It's your meatloaf and mashed potatoes. You guys just feel so good when you do it. He's a threat to democracy. He's a threat to our national security. Let me guarantee you something. A majority of the American people don't buy it.
Correct.
So why are you trying to sell something they're not going to buy? That's how we lose in this business. And it has ramifications, as you stated, Mr. Secretary, for policy and how we're going to govern. So he made those promises. We all saw it. Putin's playing him like a fiddle. Like a fiddle. And Trump so wants to be Putin. He so wants to be Putin that he's hoping that just some of that will rub off on him. And so we should hold him to those things. And Rob's had some good things that he's been saying since he's reemerged from the ambassadorship. Mary mentioned it before. He said Democrats should stop talking about the bathroom and start talking about the classroom. Smart. That's a good one. That one I would give a C- to.
James, how does this guy govern?
So, to me, he doesn't have a plan. He gets up in the morning and he says, we're going to put a tariff of 150%. Then the next morning, he said, we'll have a tariff of 75. Then I'm going to have a tariff here. I'm going to have a tariff on China. Then I'm going to have a tariff on Western Europe. Then I'm going to do this. He governs by distraction. It's totally, if something is not working, all right, I will disagree with Governor Christie a little bit. By the end of the Biden administration, border crossings were totally tamed. Biden made a huge mistake, and Democrats made a huge mistake. They listened to the fringe left. These people are wrong about everything. There's not a single thing that they've ever been right about. And so they told him at the beginning that this was a human. Bernie Sanders had said we don't need to have border patrols, border security. We got to understand something. People like immigrants. If I took a poll and said, I'm going to list some things and tell me if you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of them. You know, you name it. The Federal Reserve, the NFL, the Catholic Church, and people would give. If you say immigrants, it'll poll 75% every time. What people do not like is disorder. Understand that. The problem is not with the immigrant. The problem is either real or perceived disorder. And whenever a party becomes the party of disorder, no matter how charitable and how generous and how kind your position is, if it produces disorder, the public is going to recoil every time. And I think that in order for the Democrats to be successful, don't run against immigrants, because this place would not be here with immigrants. It wouldn't be a shadow of itself. And we all know that. But you run against disorder. And I think that's a key distinction. The truth of the matter is, there were more deportations under the last 4 months of the Biden administration than were under the first 4 months of the Trump administration. If we count deportations as a matter, as a yardstick of success, and you know, and we all know this, there's 14 million people in this country that are, I don't know, use the word, that legally, we ought to just have Republicans and Democrats talk about things we can agree on. Let's get a point system. So if you've been here for 50 years, you've held a job for 49 of those 50 years, you've never gotten in any trouble, you've educated your kids, all right, you score a 10. You should be made a citizen. All right, I don't care if you came here illegally 50 years ago. If you're here and you've been convicted of a felony or 3 misdemeanors, and you haven't held a job down, and you've applied for 15 different public benefits, then you get a 1. All right, to just judge every immigrant, every person that's here, that their differences. And if President Reagan recognized that, remember the Simpson-Mazzoli bill, the Simpson from Wisconsin, remember Mazzoli from Louisville was a Democrat?
Part of that.
They tried to do that, President Bush tried to do that, President Reagan tried to do it, President Bush II tried to do it, Obama tried to do it, and it just became caught up in something. But if we deal with it in an orderly way, say, okay, we've got 14 million people. George Will pointed out, if you deported 14 million people on a bus, the line would go from Laredo to Toronto. So we're not getting rid of 14 million people. We logistically just can't do that. But out of the 14 million, 500,000 ain't worth a damn. Find out who they are and get them the hell out of here. The other 13.5 million, if they want to have, you know, it was the dreamers. If you were in college and you were, you know, we talk about birthright citizenship. It's always been. That's in the constitutions of 15 different countries around the world. But you just can't, you can't use a word and apply this. They're all different. Immigrants are like all of us. They're all different. And we got to figure a system to empower and keep the productive ones, and that's the vast majority of them, and then try to figure out how to get rid of the ones that are not any good.
Let me ask you a quick question. We're almost at the past the midway point, and then we turn to questions from our audience. The big beautiful bill. Obviously, it's a bill that's going to be almost totally partisan on the Republican side. It is going to extend the tax cuts, but there are concerns that the biggest benefits will go to the wealthy at the expense of cuts in Medicare and Medicaid, and it is likely to add anywhere from $3 to $4 trillion to the debt, which is why Musk raised his opposition. Looking at that bill right now and the traps it has to go through, what are the chances for passage? Mary?
Well, I think it's I think some version of it is going to pass, and I want to just sort of pull this all together. I keep coming back to the language and 80% issues. We're conflating immigration, which is kind of, it's in our DNA. We were talking before, do you know at the turn of the last century, there were more Sicilians in New Orleans than there were in Sicily, okay? My people came over at the same time your people came over, and we've looked up the thing, and you had to be healthy, and you had to have a job, or you had to have somebody to support you. So people don't like disorder, thank you for saying that. And they also don't like unfairness. And the largest supporter of legal immigration and against an unsafe border were immigrants. Okay, so like people like, of course, we are absolutely, that's a sine qua non. That just, we're all immigrants. There's nobody native here unless you're a Native American. Okay, so that we keep having that conversation. Like if you're for a secure border, you're anti-immigrant. That is the problem with the conversation. So in a bigger scope, everything y'all are saying about Trump, I get it, people believe that, but people out there, normal people, not us who are all engaged, think the same thing of the Democrats. You don't think the Democrats look kind of wacky out there with their girls' sports and all? So people out there, like, you're all wacky. It's not like they think Trump is wackier. They think everybody in politics is wacky. Everybody is corrupt, and I'll tell you who thinks that the most young people have. I say this to my kids all the time since we got to be in the glory days of politics. It hurts my heart that can't enjoy politics. Our son-in-law is the policy director for our new reform mayor now. That's how it should be. Now, so if everything up there is just for show, then you have to go back to what the governor said here, the results. I would say, with respect, you can't measure it to 4 months. I would also say there's chaos, there's opportunity in chaos, and I don't care who is president. We are in a chaotic time. This is equivalent, this paradigmatic shift. I thought 9/11 was a paradigmatic shift when we had to redo security policy from containment, deterrence, and all that, stability. Now we still haven't figured that out, but AI is a far bigger paradigm changer than even the industrial age. It's more akin to the agricultural phenomena. Like, it's going to change everything. It's going to change the way we govern, the way we travel.
Is the bill going to pass?
I said the bill is going to pass. The reason I'm saying this, because the bill is just part of this bigger picture. The bill has the tax cuts in it, but separate, and it has some regulatory relief. It's not going to cut Medicaid. We do have, and you know this because you were there and you were there and you were there. There's so much fraud and abuse in Medicaid. It's not going to cut anything out of there. They're using the CBO numbers. We've been fighting over dynamic scoring for as long as I've been alive. And even Reagan or anybody, we can live with a deficit, but we cannot live. This country cannot live without some reform to our structural debt, which exceeds our defense budget, who owns our debt. So we have to be serious about it. And how many budget fights have we been through to us, all of us here? So you gotta, like, is he really cutting Medicaid and Medicare, and is it grammars and am I really gonna not be able to get my Medicare? I don't think so. Do we need to focus on structural reform in those entitlements? In that non-discretionary spending, the unfunded liabilities, yeah, there's 2 more years of Social Security left. So I'm not being critical, I'm just saying.
Answering my question.
The bill is gonna pass, regulatory relief is gonna pass.
Just tell me whether you think the damn thing's going to pass.
I think it's gonna pass. I think he has the House by the short hairs and he's got the Senate.
Let me go. Go ahead.
I think I agree with Mary. I'm not exactly sure, but still kind of. James can help me with that. And still trying to figure it all out.
When
but I'm with you.
I have to, for me to get a word in edgewise, I have to put many words in because I don't get another chance.
Some version of the bill will pass because Republicans can't afford for it not to pass.
Correct.
So that's the political reality. Now, I will say this though, that it is wholly irresponsible for us not to be dealing with the explosive cost of our entitlement programs. It is wholly irresponsible for us to be telling people that we can run these programs forever, like they are. Look, Social Security, a few things. Mary said it's right, 2 years, and it's going to go bankrupt. So how about this? We have to raise the retirement age. We have to. We're all living longer. Sorry, that means we're going to have to work longer. If you'd rather die, go ahead. But if you want to live, we got to raise the retirement age. I think we have to means test Social Security. I've done well. I'm successful. I don't need it, and I shouldn't take it. And you know what? I have people in New Hampshire, when I said this, yelling at me, saying, I paid for it. I want it back. Okay. You know how much you paid for? This much. The amount you put in versus the amount you take out, even allowing for investing that money and getting a return on it, which the federal government doesn't do.
Does not do.
Right? Even allowing for that. Given how old we all live to now, thank God, we got to change these programs. So it's not good enough just to say, I won't cut Medicaid, I won't cut Medicare, I won't cut Social Security. It should be there for the people who need it. FDR designed Social Security as a program, as a safety net, so that all those people who lost their pensions during the Depression and died poor.
No, you're right, but this bill doesn't do any of that.
That's what I said. I said separated the two. The bill's going to pass.
All
the
right.
bill does none of it. But guess what? Democrats don't want to do it either.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So guess what? In this Congress, with 3-vote majority of Republicans over Democrats, if the Republicans don't want to do it, and the Democrats don't want to do it,
Ain't going to happen.
who's left? So, but we better get to it.
All right.
Because if we don't, we're in trouble.
Excuse me, James,
Thank you.
but I got to get to halftime here.
I'm fine.
All right. Let me take a moment to recognize our question review team, the people responsible for selecting the questions that will be presented to the speakers. I ask you to hold your applause as I introduce them. Mike Clancy, KSQD FM 90.7. David Kellogg, managing editor of the Monterey Herald. Doug McKnight, who's a reporter with KAZU Radio. And Pete Werversky, who is the managing editor of the opinion page of San Francisco Chronicle. If you would thank them for what they're doing. And last, Sylvia and I, as always, thank our Institute board for their generous support, the lecture series sponsors that make these programs possible and allow us to bring these discussions to all of you and our audience watching at home. Tonight, we're proud to have students here that are part of our leadership seminar at the Panetta Institute. They are the California State University student body officers. And if they would rise, I would like you to acknowledge them too. We have about, they're in the back row. Thank you. All right, James, let me ask you, the Democratic Party is going through a lot of throes now, trying to figure out what happened in the election, trying to figure out whether there was a cover-up for the Biden problem on aging. How do the Democrats get their act together as we face the midterms and ultimately a presidential election?
Well, thank you, and thank all the panel members and the students. I blame, in our view, what we're going through right now is a debacle, is maybe the most difficult thing I've seen in 80 years. And the people I blame the most are actually the Democrats. I think Democrats made some huge mistakes. First of all, the embrace of the language of the faculty lounge was just a giant mistake. They should have never gotten involved in that. Secondly, the public always knew Biden was too old. It's 80% of the people said he's too old to be president. You can't cover it up, okay? I'm 80, I just can't get any younger. And I know what being 80 is, and Leon and Mary and us, and we know something that the presidency entails. It is not a compatible position for a person in the 80s. It's not a compatible position for Trump either, who's 78. So the public had this figured out the whole time. Then, when he gets out, the Democrats say, well, we don't have no choice, we have to have Harris. And I'll make the point again, we played the Super Bowl with our 7th-string quarterback. All right. Any other thing, if Biden would have gotten out in the fall of 2023, or spring of 2023, we would have won by 5 points. If we had a contested, go out, see who can do what, make somebody evolve, have somebody understand how to put a coalition together, have somebody understand how to frame an issue, have somebody how to deflect an attack, all of the things that matter, political skill, we had none of it. And then 75% of the country wanted something different. Okay, you're in an election, you got 65 days to go. You can't argue with people. And so they asked Vice President Harris, what would you do different than Biden? And she says, I can't think of anything. But that's the money question. I mean, anybody could say, well, you know, every president is different. President Obama was different, President Clinton, and President this and that. Any kind of crap you can just come up with off the top of your head. All right? If any of that. So people want something, we say, you can't have it, it's not good for you. And that you can't have an opinion on who the Democratic nominee is because we're going to tell you, and we lost. All right. Now, the good news. The current potential crop of Democrats running for president in 2028 are the single most talented group of people I have ever seen in American politics. I mean that. I mean that. These people, and my attitude is, I hope y'all all run. All right? Because when people see, so we've had, politics are determined by personalities, not by the great issues of the day. I became a Democrat, Leon, I suspect for a lot of reasons that you did. We were both kind of Catholic kids and stuff. And then John Kennedy comes along and says, man, this is a cool guy. He's very inspirational, all right? Then until a lot of people, Ronald Reagan came along, maybe it was you, Governor, said, I like this guy. He's a cool guy. He's a good communicator. You didn't get involved because of some issue. You go, or President Clinton comes, or President Obama comes. They're inspirational people. We haven't had an inspirational candidate since 2012. And I want to see all of these people on the track, running, articulating, framing, deflecting, and all of the political skill that you need, and you need it, to be president. So if we can get to 2028, you're going to see talent the likes of which you can't imagine. And I mean from different places, not all from California and New York either. A lot of them are from a lot of different places around the country that have been successful. So I'm very pessimistic and troubled and in perpetual state of angst about the current situation. I am hugely optimistic if we can get, and I think we'll win in 26, that's pretty clear. But you don't, congressional parties don't inspire people. They just don't. It's asking, wait, who's the leader of the Democratic Party? James, we don't have a leader. I don't see anybody. I don't see any Democratic message. Of course you don't. And you're not going to until you get a presidential candidate. Yeah. All right, it's just not, no one was a Mike Mansfield Democrat, or an Everett Dirksen Republican, or a Bob Dole. I mean, they were all fine people. Or George Mitchell, or Chuck Schumer. But that's not, which you got to understand what American politics is about. It's about great personalities. And to not, I know people are well-meaning and they mean the same thing, but you got to understand the cavalry is 2.5 years away. It's out there. It's great, but we got to hold them off for another 2.5 years, and I think we'll be fine.
Can I,
Mary-
I'm sorry, just want to add to that, because
Yeah.
he's so right.
Just
It's not-
keep it short.
I
Because
will.
gotta keep my-
It's not, honestly, I apologize. It's not just great personalities and great leaders. It's what the governor said, and I agree with James for 28. It's results and an authentic personality. Nobody would say, I mean, maybe you would if you lived in Pennsylvania. I don't think Josh Shapiro's like a rock star, but he's getting results, or Bashir in Kentucky. People want authenticity, and the bad thing about politics is operatives, it's like a herd mentality. The last battle, the last campaign that won, or the last personality that won, everybody copies. Nobody can copy Trump. He's sui generis, okay? And everybody tries to copy him, like when the Democrats went through this using potty words and all that. That doesn't, so that the next authentic personality with a result, which is why governors, he has and mayors too, they have good governors and good mayors on the Democratic side.
Let me ask about the Republican Party, and it's directed at both Mary and Chris. Do you think there'll come a time when the Republican Party will return to the party you remember? In other words, is the party going to be the party of MAGA forever, or is it going to return to the old guard, or is it going to fall apart? What's going to happen to the Republican Party once Trump leaves?
I think there's a fourth alternative to that. And the fourth alternative is it'll be a new party that is none of those things.
Correct.
And will be determined, as James said, by who's the leader. And unlike James, and I agree with him, that a lot of the Democrats on the horizon are very talented, accomplished people. I know a lot of them, especially the governors, I think are really good. But when you have a president for 8 years, no one else can rise up.
Oh, that's a good point.
In the same way that James was talking about, you can't have a leader now as Democrats, and I completely agree with him, because nobody cares about Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, or any of these other people in the Congress. They need to see a presidential candidate that they grasp onto. This is the same when it was George W. Bush for 8 years. It was the same when it was Ronald Reagan for 8 years. Even his vice president had a difficult time emerging as his own man, and some might argue he never really did. So the Republican Party is going to be in trouble, Leon, because we have a bunch of Trump pretenders who are in the leadership of our party now, starting with the vice president, who literally, this is true, go look it up, 6 years ago, called Trump every name in the book. 6 years ago. And now he's supposed to be like the great inheritor of the Trump mantle. Don't count on it. Don't go to DraftKings or FanDuel and put any money down on that. I know you can't do that in California, but if you go to another state, maybe you could.
You can do it in Nevada.
So that's exactly right. And in 40 states you could do it in. Here's the thing. The Republican Party is not going to be the party of Donald Trump come 2028. And the reason it isn't is because what Mary said. He is sui generis. That is the best phrase to describe him. There have only been 2 presidential candidates who weren't already president in the TV age who have come into a race with 100% name ID. Dwight Eisenhower and Donald Trump. For 2 very different reasons. But nonetheless, he was a celebrity. He was universally known for fake reasons. You're fired in some studio somewhere, as if he was actually running a business. Like, all that stuff was all fake, but that's how people related to him. No one can replace that. And anybody who tries to is going to lose. I don't think the Republican Party will fall apart. And I think that it will just be a different brand that will be personified by whoever the man or woman is who's going to do all the things James talked about. Articulate, charm, deflect, inspire.
So it's really going to be about the candidate.
It's always about the candidate. I don't care what race you look at for an executive position, it is always in an executive position about the candidate. you are electing a man or a woman who you can relate to. And the last thing I'll say is, I couldn't agree with Mary more about authenticity. People just want you to be who you are.
That's why they love you.
Thank you, Mary.
You are who you are. I mean,
Well, look, I mean, you know, I'll give you one quick example of that. As governor of New Jersey, I was a loud, proud Dallas Cowboys fan. You can't do worse. The whole northern part of my state are Giants fans. The whole southern part of my state are Eagles fans. The only thing Giants and Eagles fans agree on is that they hate the Cowboys. And the governor is a Cowboys fan. And my staff told me, you can't be a Cowboys fan anymore. And I'm like, but I am. And I'm like, no, but you can't be. I was. And yeah, I'd go to Lincoln Financial Field and get booed. And I'd go to MetLife Stadium and get booed.
Santa Claus got booed in Philadelphia.
Right? Say, yeah, everybody gets booed in Philly. So, but the best end of that is that when I was campaigning for re-election, I was in a diner in New Jersey, and I went up to a woman sitting in a booth, and I shook her hand. I said, hi, I'm Christie, running for re-election. She goes, I know who you are. That's usually not a good sign. And she said, I have two things to say to you. I said, okay. She said, I disagree with almost everything you've done. She said, but I'm voting for you because I can trust you to tell the truth. That's what people want.
All right, let me move on here. Talk a little bit about the concern about corruption. President Trump has more than doubled his personal wealth since taking office. Billions of dollars flowed into his family's real estate and crypto ventures. Qatar gifted him a palace in the sky as Air Force One. The Trump Organization has 6 real estate projects planned in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE. One historian says, and I quote, Trump is the most brazenly corrupt national politician in modern times, unquote. Is there any kind of effective check on corruption?
Yes, you me?
Yeah.
Elections. Now, I'm serious. And look, you had great corruption and great wealth inequality during the Gilded Age. It ended up in the progressive era. You ended up with the 16th Amendment. You ended up with, worker safety, child labor laws, you name it. Then you had great corruption and great wealth equality in the 1920s, and you ended up with the New Deal. This is where we are. We are a corrupt, unequal country. Sorry, we just are. And the question is, how does this end? Because it's not going to continue. You're not going to continue this kind of inequality. You're not going to continue with this kind of corruption. I actually have, I'm not saying that I think this is going to happen, but we might be about to enter what I would call a post-partisan age. I base it on a couple of things. What is the conservative or liberal position on AI and technology? I don't know. You know what the leading job of a non-college male is in the United States today? Truck driver. You know what we're not going to have in 10 years? Truck drivers. Just not going to have them. That you can see already. There's not going to be taxi cab drivers, there's not going to be limousine drivers, there's not going to be truck drivers. There's none of that. The technology is going to do all that. So we have to figure out how do we live in literally a post-employment world. The second thing, and you'll never convince me otherwise, at some point you can be a green eyeshade guy, you can be a Leon Panetta, a budget guy, and you can try the best you can to balance the books and say, you can get away. The percent of debt to GDP is untenable, and it's only going to get worse. And so we already know how they're going to have to fix it. They're going to have to fix it through things in Utah. They're going to have to be some kind of a curb and you call it entitlement spending or something like that. And you're going to have to raise taxes. You're just going to have to. You cannot make the math work any other way. Everybody in the world has tried, everybody in the world's failed. So we don't have any answer on how to deal with the coming humongous job losses that are going to be a result of technology. And by the way, you're not going to stop it. You can't stop technology. You can't stop progress as hard as you try. You know, the running joke is the factory of the future will have two people, living things. One will be a man, one will be a dog. And the man's job will feed the dog, and the dog's job will be to make sure the man doesn't touch the machine. And we know there's truth to that. So we're not going to fight as whether the man has a minimum wage, he makes what, or we're not going to fight whether the man belongs to a union, we're not going to fight whether he has insurance. That's not the argument we're going to have. The argument's going to have what happens to all of these displaced workers. The number of people it takes to make a car, to assemble a car, to drill an oil well, to do anything is going down every day. This is the worst job market we've had for college graduates since 2009. And it's only going to get worse. It doesn't matter who the president is. All right? The march of technology is not going to stop. If we are not at all prepared to deal with this, and as good a Democrat as I am, the old fights are not going to be the fights we're going to have going forward. I don't see that. We'll see, but you know, it's a bold prediction to say we may. And people have always said this, but we might be on the verge of entering some level of a post-partisan world.
All right, let me ask about governing again and the use of social media. In one sense, Trump understands the use of social media. That's really how he communicates to his base. But isn't that an approach that in some ways is at the heart of the chaos and turmoil? Because how can a president govern with stability if he's constantly throwing new ideas out every day on social media? So doesn't the use of social media, doesn't his ability to kind of, you know, wake up in the morning and throw a dozen ideas out there, doesn't that undermine in many ways his ability to really get things done?
I don't think it's social media, although it has its problems. It's the way he uses it. So like, when I became governor in 2010, social media was all in its absolute infancy. YouTube in particular, in its infancy. What we decided to do, Leon, was we had a very hostile press to a Republican in a blue state in one of the most liberal markets in the world. And so we said, well, we can't depend on them to tell our story. We'll still deal with them. But my staff used to come, I decided I'll do town hall meetings, and I did. In my first 4 years, I did over 200 of them. And my staff would come, and they would videotape the town hall meetings. And before I left the town hall meeting, before I got to the State House, the town hall meeting, they were already up on YouTube with 5 or 6 of the clips that they thought were the best. And I got called the YouTube governor because we were the first ones who did it.
I remember that.
If you use it in a way that supplements the decision-making process, it's an incredible tool to have people be able, at their convenience, to look at what you're doing and saying and be able to take care of it. Again, with Trump, it's always how he does it is the problem. Like, if you're gonna, I mean, the latest one was Memorial Day. Go back and look at his tweet on Memorial Day. I wish you all a happy Memorial Day, including the crazy liberal scum who every day make my life miserable, and he went on from there, right? Now, is that social media's fault? Like, this is one of the things that drives me crazy about the way people talk about Trump. It's his fault. It's not social media, because if we didn't have social media, he'd be doing that at a press conference. If we didn't have electronic media, he'd be doing it in a fireside chat. If it wasn't the radio, he'd be putting out pamphlets like Jefferson and Adams put out insulting each other, right? It doesn't matter. We have to start holding people responsible in public life for what they do, what they say, what they don't do, and what they don't say. So social media has its problems. Believe me, I never look at the comments in my stuff. Bad, bad, bad. So there's a lot of people in their mother and father's basement, getting beer muscles and getting aggressive, and that's negative for our conversation. But in the end, it's not the medium, it's the message.
True that.
Go.
Ca-
Mary?
Yes, and it doesn't matter because it's not going away. But if I can just take a step back, one of the problems with social media is tied to this generational shift that the baby boomers have tried to present didn't happen. So boomers are now not the most numerous, the next generation after us, and yet the Congress, at the federal level, this is getting better in the states, but at the federal level, is populated with geezers that don't know a Twitter from a tinkle. I'm talking to Grok every day like she's my best friend. I've changed her names, I give her outfits and stuff. I mean, to me, it's like a toy, but it's not a toy. And Democrats and Republicans and everybody is not engaged in politics used to say that it was the greatest democratization tool, okay? And it's good for lots of things. So I'm gonna say on this, hey, there goes a squirrel. Trump just makes me laugh. Like if you wouldn't respond to him, if you just laugh at him, that's just patently stupid. But going to what you said, where you're saying, James and I did a thing on My Favorite Person is Cicero, and we found a memo that his brother, who was his campaign manager, wrote when was Cicero, okay? Hired a lawyer, called his opponents pedophile, it's the message is what's important. And I think one of the problems for Democrats and for people our age, it's like we chase these rabbits instead of what's really happening here? You can't say he's failed yet. It's been 4 months. We don't know what the results are going to be. And it's not just his results. I actually have seen him be, to my observation, I'm not a pro or anything, I'm just a results person. He's actually kissed a lot of ass on the Hill for him, okay, and put things in and out of the bill. So that's just the nature of politics. So we have to use social media, and honestly, baby boomers we're not born with it. This generation that we're not letting step into leadership and it's part of their brain, and we keep avoiding this conversation about AI. This is not just another tool. This is transformative in a way and disruptive in a way that we do not understand. And if any of you are in the market, you know this, because follow the AI stocks.
Let me, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I really want to get to the heart of, what our lecture series' theme was, which is what will be the legacy of the Trump era. He will have served for 2 terms. What is history going to say about this era? Is it all about chaos and disruption? Is it about a bold transformation of the economy and society? Is it about a stronger or weaker America? I want you to tell us what you believe the legacy of the Trump era will be.
Me?
Me or who?
Yeah, let's start here. Let's start here and work down quickly.
Corruption and inequality. That's just going to be the things that are going to be most remembered. And if we just talk for 1 minute to young people, we're always changing. So we have Cicero. Imagine how much the printing press changed the world. Just no idea. What about the Reformation? I mean, you're talking about staggering change. You think you've seen change? How about when radio came? Think of your life the day before you had a radio and the day after. It's like you knew the ball scores, you knew the stock market, you knew everything was going on. Then television was going to change the world. Then everything is going to change. Then internet was going to change the world. Now social media is going to change the world. Nothing will ever change the ability of talented people that know how to use public opinion to frame an issue, to draw a contrast, to see ahead of the curve, and tell people what's coming. It has been that way forever. I don't care how it goes, it's going to be that way.
So you think the basic legacy is going to be about corruption?
I think inequality and corruption is going to define
Chris?
this period.
Yeah, I would say to the students that you have, these presidents of the student body, you're looking at a president of the student body at the University of Delaware. So hell, man, you don't know where your life's headed. So have confidence that you can be whatever you want to be, no matter how the world changes in the way that James spoke about. The legacy of Trump, it's hard for me to tell completely, Leon, but I'll say this. I think people will be amazed decades from now about how one person could, for a period of 12 years, completely change American politics.
Mary,
And that's what he's
quickly.
done.
He did, but he didn't change the issues. Just remember 80% issues. And to you students, you really are our future. I know that's cliche. You're the only one that knows how to use the tools. And I think what Trump's legacy would be is, and all of this is true, but if you look at leaders, past presidents, people never talk about their personalities. They talk about he's unleashing energy. James and I agree on nuclear, okay? He has closed the border. We don't know what else is going to happen, but I happen to be from the steel mills of South Chicago. I love reindustrialization, and I do think that we can create jobs commensurate. People can grow into the job. So I think if we look at issues, I think it'll have a huge impact.
Bottom line, give me a bottom line.
He made America grow again. We're going to grow again. That's it. And all this ugliness is up to you guys to not do it in an ugly way.
All right, you've heard their views on the legacy. I think everybody here will have the opportunity to think long and hard about the legacy that we have. But I hope that all of you will think long and hard about what is important in our democracy. Yes, we elect leaders, but ultimately it's about the American people. That's what our forefathers said. It is we the people who created this union. And it is we the people who will determine whether or not that democracy survives. I hope through the lectures that we've presented that we've inspired all of you as American people to be interested in trying to make sure that our children will have a better life in the United States of America. That's the goal, and thank you for being here. Thank our speakers, too.